My name is Dave Smith.
All right.
And I was born April 18th, 1951 in Springfield, Illinois. That would make me 60 years old.
Name is Judy Klinkhammer, but I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in January 2nd, 1941.
Orlone Folkers, September 19th, 1950, and Peoria, Illinois.
Okay.
I'm Steve Folkers, which is John Stephen. I go by my middle name, Steve. And almost the same. I was about 2 weeks earlier, is August 28th, 1950 in Peoria, Illinois, in the same hospital, right? St. Francis?
St. Francis.
Yeah.
My name's Owen Ryan. I was born January 9th, 1956 in what's now called Ho Chi Minh City in the country of Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. So I came down here to go caving Thanksgiving weekend of 1971.
Okay.
And just fell in love. I had no idea there were rivers here that were clear. I'd never seen a clear river. They're all brown where I came from. Mm-hmm. I'd never seen mountains. I'd never seen wild turkeys. I saw them. Went to the hootenanny up in the courthouse, in the courtroom, and I'd never seen people play music except band in school. Mm-hmm. Where I come from, nobody that I knew owned a guitar or a fiddle or a banjo. I never heard that kind of music. Mm-hmm. And it just got me.
I woke up that morning and walked outside, and there was dogwoods and redbuds and green and birds, and this very mean-looking man said he wondered if I was ever going to get up.
And land was cheap, taxes were low, and particularly lack of building codes.
Wanted $35 an acre for 130 acres, and we bought it.
And then I moved into my rent house, which was a really neat place, way, way back in the stick. 3 creek crossings to get there.
Oh my gosh.
And it had electricity, but no phone or any of that. It had an outhouse out on the Glade Rock. Mm-hmm. It was 80 acres with a barn, a feed shed, a neat old house, a cistern on the back porch, a spring down below the house for water. Mm-hmm. $5 a month was the rent.
It had no cash value to it at all. The whole house was built for $20 worth of hardware, or maybe it was more than that, but it was the hinges for the door and some nails, and I don't know, got some used windows someplace.
Started cutting trees here, and I cut trees all winter and peeled them. Mm-hmm. And stacked them up to dry. And then I went off in the summer of '73 to drive a truck to make my first land payment, and came home that fall and started building the Hogan.
Okay.
And it took me about 6 or 8 months to do that. Mm-hmm. Over the winter, I froze in the teepee all winter. And all I had for tools was a big Homelite chainsaw, Homelite Zip, which is this ancient, heavy, worn-out chainsaw, and that was my building machine. I cut everything, the notches and everything with that. Mm-hmm. Cutting notches on a 6-sided building is really difficult because the notch is askew. It's not straight across the log. It's angled, and I was doing this with a chainsaw. Mm-hmm. But and I had a hand plane and a hammer. And after I broke the hammer handle a few times, I got a crowbar.
We were growing food, and we were canning fruit, and we were wildcrafting a lot of blueberries or huckleberries some years. Yeah. And then whatever neighborhood pear tree.
There really wasn't a whole lot of traditional crafts around here. Several old-timers have told me that.
I had taken a weaving course in college. And it was important that I have a craft or a work and aimed at earning some money to do that had that fit our lifestyle. But as far as tying it into the local community, I didn't.
I apprenticed to Keith and learned how to do buckets, and that was the only actual apprenticeship I had. He brought the coopering from the Appalachians, from John C. Campbell, from the folk school over there. So, but it was native here, and they did it exactly the same way. He's from eastern Tennessee, and a whole lot of the people here in north central Arkansas came from eastern Tennessee, and they brought that same exact kind of way of making buckets and butter churns and tubs and stuff from there.
I learned to make baskets from Wayman Evans, who's a basket maker from Georgia. passed away about like 15 years ago. He was born around the turn of the century. Wayman made his family's traditional basket, you know, just the way, you know, his dad had made it and his dad before, you know. I suppose there would be, you know, little variations in shape and stuff, but it was pretty much the unadulterated tradition. So a lot of the baskets I make, it's done to keep that tradition.
I went there and I couldn't believe it, you know, Uncle Fate Morrison and his grandson playing the fiddles and a bunch of guitars and banjos, and it really got me. I guess I had music in me, I didn't know it. That's, you know, boy, they were the real deal, that's for sure. And Fate was not a great fiddler by any stretch. He was real squeaky. Of course, he was pretty old by then too. But he just knew a lot of tunes. A lot of tunes Fate knew had never been written down or recorded. They were just old Morrison family tunes with strange names. And he knew them, but he of course he'd learned them from his father, who learned them from his father. They were just passed down generation to generation. And the musicals over at Lonnie's were really neat. They'd push the furniture back, and the kids would square dance. And this wasn't like, you know, like something let's all learn to square dance so we can go to the thing and do it. It's just, they'd been doing it. They just learned it because people did it. And they didn't do it for the pleasure of any audience. They did it because it's fun to do it. And that's why they were doing it. And it was just a fascinating thing.
Here's what got me. We went to the courthouse. You could still park around the courthouse then. And Bookmiller Shannon was sitting on the steps playing his banjo. And I thought that was the most beautiful sound, that clawhammer banjo. But I had never seen one and never heard one. And at that time, by then, I played dulcimer and guitar and auto harp. And I walked over and I watched him, big hand, you know him, he was big. And he was grim looking too. And he was just doing this. And there's all these little notes. Book never went slow, ever. Never went slow. But he played as long as I stood there, and I was enchanted. Just enchanted. I had to have that, just like I had to have a dulcimer when I heard one on PBS, you know, and I had to have that. It was just the most beautiful thing, and people were friendly, and I don't know what it was. I barely wanted to go get the kids, you know. Within a week, Jimmy was at my door, and he said, Bookmiller banjo needs to be learned, and I can't think of anyone but you to learn it. Would you be willing? I thought that was an amazing thing that I got asked to do that, and he said, now I need to set it up, because I was this Yankee girl with short skirts. And Terry, I had an old woman come and stop me, come and grab my arm and pull me away from whoever I was playing music with on a Sunday afternoon on the square. And she said, you shouldn't be seen out here in broad daylight playing music with the men. And then she let me go.
There's not a whole lot of people real interested in the traditional aspects of the craft right now.
They were from
That lived
Texas.
about halfway there, and had been there they had been there 30 or 40 years,
Since the
and
40s,
told
I
us
think,
we'd
yeah.
always be from off.
I teach fiddle and guitar at Rural Special School and Timbo. They're both small schools. Rural Special, where I started first, I started with these girls when they were in the 4th grade. Now they're in the 8th grade. And you ought to hear them play. They're good. In fact, they're going to play for Contradance in Mountain View tonight.
Wow.
And these are my students that I taught to play. I'm so proud.
I bet.
They make me really proud.
I would not ever have been accepted in this community had I not learned from the old timers and taught it to their grandchildren and their children. And I got paid in fresh trout and homemade butter and those terrible pounds of bologna.
Oh.
They would bring me a pound of bologna. Oh. Yeah. And I remember one of the first cold mornings I got up and there was a rick of wood in my front yard, and I never knew who brought that.
It's all about quality of life, and it's all about happiness. And
I especially appreciate and love the tribe from off that has come and done, you know, they're craftsmen, they're musicians, they're these incredible people.